the Lustrous may be the most broadly accessible coming-of-age story on the market. By divorcing from any earthly location, from the concepts of gender and body type, and from the physical need for sex and food, it presents its characters as pure psyche, to the extent that their bodies are basically metaphors for their minds. Of course, most people don't like their stories to be too broad. Usually we look for relatable footing. Since the overwhelming majority of Earth's population identifies as either male or female, even ultra-broad media will pull on at least the most broadly relatable traits of those gender identities to form the baselines of their characters. By sidestepping this, Land of the Lustrous may be less precisely relatable to the majority of people, but since it strips the characters down to psychological elements anyone can relate to, it's able to reach audiences who don't identify with common gender denominations or worldviews, hence the show's success in the trans community. It doesn't necessarily speak to trans people specifically, since it makes no attempt to comment on that experience. It's simply that the show doesn't identify its characters in ways which that audience would have difficulty connecting with. Absent of sexuality, it can explore love purely on the basis of how personalities connect. Absent country or faith, it can explore authoritarianism, cultural conflict, and the formation of societies, without rejecting an audience's worldview. Sensei can stand as a metaphor for God, or a father, or the government, or all three, because he isn't specifically any of those. The Lunarians can stand for a foreign culture, the unknown, or death itself. We're not really sure what their deal is anyways, at least not by the end of the season. Having said all of that, I apologize in advance for choosing to use the gendered pronoun she in describing Phos in this write-up, but I tried replacing that word with they, and it made this post legitimately way too confusing. Just know that I don't believe in gender in the first place, so I don't think it matters. Phosphophilite begins a naive child in search of purpose. She wants to do something cool, like fighting the Lunarians. Because she is brittle, weak, and not that smart, she's a total liability on the battlefield. While Phos is frustrated with herself for not being strong enough, others are frustrated with her for trying to pursue that role at all. They want her doing something useful. Sensei assigns her to create an encyclopedia, which to him seems as important as any other job, and utilizes her natural observational skills. But to Phos it seems like a boring waste of time. No one understands how to communicate to Phos the problems with her mentality. As a weakling, she's unable to relate to the sense of purpose which everyone else has. None of them can find a purpose for her either, nor have they time to tutor her. Sensei, while able to see her talents, can't communicate his intentions because the logic of his system must be kept secret for the gem's safety, at least in his mind. Eventually we learn how everyone found their purpose through force of overcoming trauma, some psychological pain that they've been driven to conquer, and Phos only comes to understand this, as most children will, when it happens to her. The first blow comes when she trusts someone for showing her more kindness and truth than anyone else, only to then betray and use her. Stripped of what little power she has, she's left with no control, and loses part of her body along with part of her memories. A piece is taken which she can never get back, a loss of innocence. In spite of this, when she learns why she was treated this way, she thinks it might as well have been this way, since she was never good for anything to begin with. If this abuse could make her useful, then at least she's been of use. After this trauma, she might have lost herself, but if nothing else, Phos has resolve in pursuit of any goal which she hasn't proven herself unable to achieve. And having given herself the mission of helping the only gem more othered than herself, she's able to get on her feet once more, finding that the new legs she's been given are stronger than her old ones. After all, to lose innocence, to grasp more truth, is to grow up. Phos meets one with such sense of responsibility that they imbue it into her. Winter is long and they're alone together, so Phos gets the one-on-one training she always needed. But as she learns the importance of duty, she grows frustrated with her slow growth, wondering if she could just replace her arms as well, could she be stronger? To the sadness of those around her, she hurts herself, and then tries to supplicate the wounds with foreign substances, granting the power she desires, but taking away part of who she is as well, leaving someone almost new. I know the purpose of this show's abstraction is so anyone could project onto it, but I couldn't help seeing this as a metaphor for psychiatric medication or drug use. Antark's death gives Phos context to finally appreciate the depth of trauma which her comrades have experienced, and which, at one point or another, every audience member will as well. If you have any human connections, you will one day experience the death of those you love. Trauma is unavoidable for human beings, so is it wise to hide from? To ignore as best we can, leaving us unprepared to handle it again? Society could stand to spend more time facing the void if we want to live and fight more effectively, but that's a rant for another time. Fos lacks conviction in her conclusion, but isn't satisfied staying in the dark. Learning that all of the gems realize Sensei is hiding something recontextualizes everything. Facing their own ignorance and traumas, each gem has individually concluded that, whether right or wrong, Sensei has their best intentions at heart and is dedicated to finding them purpose and happiness. They fear the truth may undo that purpose, and choose instead to believe that this man who's seen the back of the void and returned to do as much as he can must know better than they even could about what must be done. Yet Sensei acknowledges that whatever traumas these girls befall is on his shoulders as the authority. No one blames him because they understand that everyone makes mistakes, but do they consider that there might be a better way? Cinnabar, having never found purpose within this society, is in a position to doubt it, but doesn't know what to change. Fos is in that position too, but with another perspective. Having lost and replaced the weaker parts of herself, she grasps the potential of mutation and evolution, of exceeding circumstances. Will breaking barriers ultimately lead to something better? For those with purpose, it isn't worth the risk to find out. For Cinnabar, it isn't the actualization she was promised, but working for any reason is better than not. For Fos, she can find no sense of identity while barely remembering who she used to be. Land of the Lustrous got better as it went. Eventually I loved it, and I want to know what happens next. At first I had been disappointed with the adaptation because all I'd really loved about the manga's first volume was the stunningly elegant artwork. The anime looks good overall, and CGI was the right way to go, but comparing the caliber of this work against, say, a Final Fantasy cutscene, it pales compared to the level above most manga which the source material stands at. But once I was invested in the story, I didn't care. The fact it had the opportunity to reach its audience and be at least more visually engaging than the average TV anime is enough. Even its meandering pace and deliberately awkward comedy grew on me as I fell into the show's rhythm. Your mileage will vary, but as long as you can resonate with the core themes and some of the character personalities, you'll probably get something out of it. I'm invested in the arc of pairing everyone with Bort and seeing if anyone besides them will acknowledge how their perfectly logical thinking is incomplete without the creativity of those who offer it direction, and in seeing how any of these characters will learn to grow, especially Sensei, whom I doubt would be as closed off of it as the others seem to believe. I guess it's time to read! If you enjoyed this video and want more from me, check out the 2,500 other videos I've been in on this playlist, and support me on Patreon so I can keep explaining why you like weird foreign cartoons. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.